All right, everybody, we are back live. Going to get everybody a minute to come in, grab a seat, grab a drink, whatever you need to do. We have with us, we have Neill Krauss from Senior Sign. I had the pleasure of meeting Neill in person at Smash this year. We had not previously met, and I'd seen Senior Sign in their beautiful booths at so many shows, but this year was the first time where I got to talk to you and Jared personally and hear about, more in depth about Senior Sign. So we're glad to have him this year. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to ask, we've had a good chat going. So if you want to put your comments in the chat, if you have questions for Neill about his presentation, you can put them in the Q&A. But those two things are pretty simple and they've been going pretty well. So Steve's going to tell you about our chat contest.
Yep. So glad to have you here. Two things I want to remind you: do your speaker evaluations. Best way to do it is right at the end. So if you want to multitask, you can do the last one. I just dropped the link into chat. But the other thing is the person who initiates the most chat each day gets a $100 Amazon gift card. So we're excited about giving that out. I see a couple of front runners, but even if you're showing up for the first time, it's okay. You can still probably beat it. The one thing I do want to say is you can't just put in like 1 and then 2 and then 3 or A and then B and then B, C. Those do not count. Lot of technology, not all technology over the last today and yesterday, a lot of technology. One of the things that I think sometimes we get wrapped up in this idea that technology is super cool. Technology is a tool. And you can have the coolest technology in the world, and honestly, some technologies make life harder rather than better. They waste time, it takes energy and effort, and it costs money. We're going to talk about something today that I really like a lot because it actually saves people time and effort, and it's sort of the perfect solution. So Neill, I'm excited. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we look forward to you teaching us some things.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's do it. Great. Yeah. First of all, thanks to Dave and Steve. Yeah, finally got to meet Dave in person. Have met Steve several times, but as far as introductions go, actually, you know what? I'm just going to jump in and share my screen because it'll slide right into what I'd like to talk about and chat about a little bit today. So, talking about move-in management. Obviously, but this picture is actually not that old, even though I'm much hairier in this picture with the beard and the longer hair. But the slide going out promoting this event said I'm the chief executive officer, which I'm not. I am the founder of the company, but partnered with a wonderful guy named Jared, and he is our CEO. But I am all things product and all things customer success in terms of Senior Sign. So what is Senior Sign? Senior Sign was started a handful of years ago. So in 2017, disclaimer, I've never worked in senior living. I've never been an operator. I've never been a director of sales and marketing. I've never worked on trying to fill a building. However, I did walk into a senior living community in 2017 with an idea that I thought was really great. And through the course of a conversation with a marketing manager, was asked, she kind of asked me, can you put our move-in paperwork online? And this kind of caught me off guard. I didn't really realize at first that this was kind of a big issue, that just move-in paperwork could be a little bit exhausting for families and for residents. So full disclaimer, or full disclosure rather, my initial reaction was somebody's probably already doing that. Give me a day or two, let me do a little research and I'll tell you what software you should go sign up for. So I kind of dove in, looked around a little bit, couldn't find anything. So I went back to Deanna, this director of sales and marketing, and said, I'm not really seeing anything. Tell me a little bit more about this process and what the problem is. And so proceeded to attend an industry conference, which was very eye-opening for me. Chatted with a lot of operators, a lot of corporate executives, et cetera, and heard all about the move-in process and how much of a pain it was to collect physician forms and go through 80 some odd pages of paperwork for these families. And so the more I dove into it, the more I realized, hey, maybe there's a problem here. Initially, I was like, well, maybe this is a single community that's having an issue, or maybe it's kind of a one company problem, but began to realize and understand the more I found out about it, that it was a much bigger problem, so to speak. And so spent 8 to 10 months in and out of communities, watching residents go through the paperwork process, understanding different company and community issues and problems around this process, and built a software slowly but surely. And we'll talk a little bit about software later. I always say software sucks, but it's okay. Anyway, so yeah, built a software and kind of headed down that avenue of starting a company. So as it happens, I walked into a community one time, and this is not too long ago, but the director of sales and marketing, this community is now a customer of ours, but she had all of her paperwork spread out all across the floor here. And so I'm not sure if any of you, this is kind of tongue in cheek, but have gone through this process of building binders, building packets, photocopying things, creating these massive move-in packets and move-in paperwork, getting it ready for residents. If you kind of look down there on the bottom right up against the door, it's actually holding the door open, are those 2-inch binders, 1.5-inch binders that they fill up and would send families and residents out the door. And so I'm not sure if we always grasp or understand how difficult it is for the families to have to fill out and complete all of the paperwork that's holding them back from moving their loved one in. I think we do. Unfortunately, oftentimes I see it lands on directors of sales and marketing or a move-in coordinator. Kind of depends on care type, or different communities do different things. But this is something that we see and are trying to combat, so to speak. Paperwork stinks. That's something we say around our office all the time. And so it's been kind of a mission to help in the move-in process in terms of helping with being more empathetic to that process. So what are your current move-in problems or headaches? And so let me open the chat. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything as well. Sorry. Yeah, I've kind of categorized maybe a handful of these. You may have some additional ones, but what we tend to see are the primary headaches around holding back. You've gone through all the effort of, reaching out to families, finding, great residents to potentially move in. They come in and are excited maybe to move into your community. You're all ready to go. And then you hand them this stack of 80 some odd papers, let's say, and send them back out the door and say, well, we can't really move you in until you finish signing all of these things. And I know it's not your fault. And I know it's not necessarily, corporate that's requiring all of these forms, but rather the states, et cetera. And so we see this very frequently. And so again, categorize these into a handful of different headaches that we'll call it. And so for starters, what I like to call paper issues. So inherently, there's a whole bunch of issues. Let's say when you're dealing with out-of-state families, how am I going to get this paperwork packet to them and then get it signed and back in my possession, all in one place, all filled out correctly. And so things like that. Then there's photocopying, faxing, collecting all of the supplemental documentation around, power of attorney documents or advanced directives, living wills, post forms, regardless of state, so a handful of paper issues. And the way we kind of combat that inside of Senior Sign is we add some of the little E's. So email, e-signature, e-fax. Our sales guys are often heard saying it's kind of like having a fax machine in your pocket. So you can be out in your community, say a physician didn't get those medical forms that you need filled out and signed, or signed med list, et cetera. You can send that from your pocket. And so electronic storage or e-storage, cloud storage also, all of that is kind of built and baked into Senior Sign to help I'm seeing in the chat in triplicate. So yeah, definitely paper it can be the headache. So you may have location issues. So back to out-of-state family members that need to sign. I think the furthest I've electronically sent a packet, we've seen from here to London, family living in Australia, et cetera, needing to collect and help sign documentation. So there can be a lot of location issues. And the way that we combat that is we find a single source of truth. So location isn't always necessarily out-of-state family, but we do see issues where, a partially completed packet or, oh, we forgot those 2 or 3 forms at home when we took it home to sign. And so, or even a location issue in terms of now we've got to schedule a time and get them into our community so that we can all sit down and sign everything together. A signing party, as we like to say. I think it's worse than signing a mortgage. I've signed a couple of those in my life, and anyway, just not fun. So having everything live online, we can dictate the order in which those forms appear for the resident. We also have the ability to attach things. They can do that from home. We also, that's the great ability, is kind of a hybrid model. If you still want to sit down and maybe sign, the residency agreement, things like that in person, you can do that while also allowing families to do a lot of it from home prior to coming to the community. So big benefit there for some of our customers. Compliance issues. This is like the behemoth. This is something that stood out to me that I never realized. I didn't realize initially that each state individually kind of controlled regulations around senior living, senior housing, senior care. And so, being compliant, having somebody come in and say audit your community and look through a handful of packets and find, you're missing a signature here on, XYZ document, or some of the bigger ones where we're seeing that I'm spacing what it's called. Anyway, the arbitration agreement, sorry. Like a paragraph or things like that aren't signed. So big issues with corporate there if the arbitration agreement's been skipped. And then obviously HIPAA compliance, things like that, document storage. How long do you need to store those for? Are they stored in a secure location? Are they in a box in the basement? Old resident forms can kind of live all over, and we've seen natural disasters, disgruntled employees, et cetera. That can maybe cause some headaches there. We saw a pipe break in a community where a lot of documentation was lost and they were trying to recollect that. So it can be a big headache. So the way we kind of combat this is we use your forms inside of Senior Sign. So you're not using all brand new forms that you're not familiar with. Instead, we would basically ingest your documents, turn them into smart documents that will autofill and pre-fill along the way. But that allows us the opportunity to require a packet of documents, an individual document, individual fields across those documents, individual attachments. If you have to get, a power of attorney document, let's say prior to moving in, we can require that, as well as being able to require physician forms to be filled out. So if you need signed med lists, et cetera, we can handle that as well. So that's kind of our means of combating compliance issues, is forcing requirement. It sounds bad to force it, but we at least know the packet comes back completed, all in one place, in the order you're expecting to see it. So a lot of help there. We also track compliance as well as progress across the packet. So at any given time, you can kind of take a snapshot of an individual resident packet and say, they're 80% complete and 70% of the required fields are completed as well. So big help to communities. Tracking issues kind of along the same of what I just said. We are tracking those metrics across compliance as well as progress. Even just tracking down, it would be nice to know, where a physician is in the process or where a family member is in terms of filling out a packet. Are they sitting on it at home and haven't done anything with it? Are they 70% complete? Are they hung up and maybe I need to give them a phone call, see what I can help answer in terms of questions, et cetera. So always great to be able to kind of track and see online those real-time updates. So that's kind of how we handle that. And then lastly, empathy issues. And so I think that's not something I can fix with software. This is where the personal touch that we hear about in our industry so much. The people that I've met in this industry are absolutely amazing. Some of the best people I've had the privilege of interacting with, getting to know. I've absolutely loved phone calls with customers, with families, with residents. We've moved in tens of thousands of residents at this point, not last year, but over the life of the company. And so getting to help families and knowing that, such a great product is offered in terms of senior living and senior housing that I've really enjoyed getting to know families and their caregivers. And so, as I kind of alluded to in the beginning, I always say software sucks. And the reason I say software sucks is because too often, I think in our communities, we're trying to implement software to do a person's job. Somebody's asked, I've heard on several calls, can this eliminate a job role? Can we implement this software and then it can just handle what, so-and-so in my community is handling? And that's not really the goal of software. I can't write a software that's empathetic. I can write a software that, tracks compliance, that requires different paperwork, that allows you to electronically sign, that you can log into via browser, et cetera. But it kind of breaks, and software does begin to suck when we start to try and make software fit into a mold of what people do best. So I'm constantly talking about, let's let software do what software does best, and that will enable people to do what they do best. So when I started the company, I obviously heard a handful of stories and I began to understand a little bit about this. But in 2019, my youngest son, when he was 4, was diagnosed with cancer, and major upheaval to our lives. And so, all I really wanted to do was be with my wife and my other kids and my son Wyatt and deal with that. But instead, my wife was upstairs with my son and I was downstairs dealing with insurance and paperwork. And it took a half of a day right after we get this blow that our son's been diagnosed with cancer. And so I began to really start to understand. I thought, oh man, this is what that's like. My mom fell and was hospitalized, and now we've got to uproot her and get her out of her house, and she needs some additional care, and we need all of these additional services, and I don't know how to navigate this. How do we pay for this? All of that. It all of a sudden just landed on me how real this is for people. We only get old once. Aging is brand new to all of us. And so a lot of people are lost and kind of confused. And so I've slowly changed, not slowly, very quickly with this event, changed my mindset around what it is we're trying to do as a company, which is combat the paperwork process, which was so brutal. By the way, my son is fine now. He's been cancer-free for 3 years. So we just barely celebrated that, and super proud of him. Man, he was a trooper. So, but like I said, the thing that made the biggest difference for us, the very first nurse that we had was also a cancer survivor on his same oncology unit when she was a child, and grew up, became an oncology nurse, which was amazing. But it was the nurses and the doctors and the people that put their arms around us, and neighbors and friends, that really helped us understand and navigate this new normal for us, that, he needs additional care that I can't give him. But it had nothing to do with all of the paperwork. So it was a life lesson that, it's about people. I think that's commonly heard and talked about across our industry, is it's ultimately about the people. And so what I've tried to do as a company, in our company, I say, you guys are the people that care for people, or aging people. So the elderly. So what we try to do is create a team on our end. We do all of the setup for you. You don't have to become an expert on building your own documents on electronic signature. Rather, your team and yourself would only really need to learn basically how to send an email invitation for the family to begin to do it at home, or to click launch and sign something in person, hand in hand with the resident, with the family, and walk them through each part. Our director of customer success, Angel, she is an angel. Everybody absolutely loves her if you know her. But she came to us. She was a longtime customer for about 3 years prior to coming onto our team. And so I like to say that we're the people that care for people that care for people. So we take care of you so that you can take care of your residents and do, the best job you can in terms of personal touch, getting to know the family, et cetera. And something that, a huge added benefit to our customers and communities that we've seen, something that I hadn't really initially thought of, was that by automating some of this process. So, it can be cumbersome to go through, and write your name 19, 25 times across all the different documents, and then address and social and date of birth. And we're asking for the same things across every form. To just automate that allowed families to then in turn focus on the more important, I like to say, portions of your move-in packet, the ones that ask about, mom or dad, and ask about, some of their favorite memories. What do they do for work? Are they married? Do they have children? Where did they like to travel? What's their favorite food? Do they like, what do they like to do, et cetera? Those items that were often skipped on paper because it was like, I've got to just get through all of these meticulous items and get on with my day. I don't have time to fill these out. That once they filled it out one time and we could auto-populate that across the packet, to then go down to a question like, tell us a little bit more about your mom or your favorite memory of your mom. Boom. All of a sudden you're starting to see answers in there, and people taking time to help the community get to know their loved ones. So really loved that about what we've been doing with our software. Lastly, I always like to have a plug for Senior Specific First. Loved all the presenters today and yesterday. Lola's a customer of ours. Evan Friedkin's a good friend. Really love Rubric and what they're doing. I always like to give a plug that if there's something that you think maybe you need to do or use in your community, to take a look at Senior Specific software and Senior Specific solutions first. There's lots of great CRMs out there, but the senior living specific ones are exceptional and really focus on what it is you're trying to do in your community. There's plenty of e-signature solutions out there. None are really catered to what you're trying to do with move-in, quite like we are at Senior Sign. VR solutions, what a great presentation a couple ago. And, something that's focused on our industry and trying to provide those experiences. You really get to understand and know the industry and allow for those types of interactions and experiences. Another huge advantage to Senior Specific First, I would say, is we're integrated and always looking to integrate. I did see a question a little bit earlier, is can it be integrated? Yes. But the great thing about the senior living ecosystem is all of the softwares at least know of each other and are trying to integrate in some form or another to save dual entry. When you move from CRM to, health record or EMR, that, Senior Sign can live in the middle and transfer that data across for you and save you a little bit of time. So I can promise, DocuSign and Adobe Sign, and those are kind of skipping over some of these smaller, more niche softwares and solutions that we see in our industry. We can jump into Q&A. This is our website. And then, I don't have a slide to get in touch with me exactly. I'll drop my email into the chat though. Anyone is more than welcome to email me. Other questions? So going back through the chat, can it be integrated? I think I answered that one. Lots of good stuff. Dave.
No, thank you. And I have a similar story where my oldest daughter was in a similar situation, and and anytime I've had my children, fortunately hasn't been more than I wanted, but anyway, that paperwork, that comes around and you're just like, this is the last thing on my mind. So I love that human aspect of, just getting this. Look, the thing we've all got to deal with, the thing we've all got to do, but making it as easy as possible, both for the resident and for the community as well. It's that single source of truth is very important. Just taking these things we have to do and making it easier on everyone, I think, is an incredible value and important. And totally agree with this, with the senior first mentality there too. Is that those of us who've worked in this industry, have learned this industry, and in healthcare in general, we're going to be able to do that 10 or 20% more that the others just don't know about, just from the sheer fact of working together. So very good.
Well, I mean, even designing a software, I came from architecture, website design, all kinds of stuff. And, the clean, sleek, black on white, et cetera, that doesn't necessarily work for aging eyes that
Right.
Are having a hard time with contrast or color or different things like that. And so, even just solutions that have taken that into account, that, we deal with a lot with tremors. And so you can't always sign with a mouse or with your finger, or, so just a click to sign and add their signature, a handwriting type font, et cetera. Obviously legal, but some of those things that often get skipped over when you're, creating it for the mortgage industry, let's say. So.
Sure. No, all those nuances matter. And I think we've talked a lot over the last 2 days about how things get lost. A lot of things we talk about in digital is when we pass leads down the pipeline to sales, and everyone gets bogged down in their day-to-day. And like that, just simple things like automating check-ins, keeping you automatically up to date on things. So, we find a lot of opportunities get missed when we get bogged down in our day-to-day. So just, just those simple things, those nuances and that extra thought makes it more valuable. It helps that person do their job. And that's that's what we're trying to get to today, is helping everyone do their job better. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think the paperwork often gets skipped over, and, Smash, et cetera. The sales and marketing is always focused on CRM, getting leads, filling the funnel, et cetera. And it's like, well, once you got it, then it's like, now the horrible work begins, which is the paperwork packet. So just alleviating a little bit of that like sinking feeling of like, oh, I got a new resident. Oh man, I got a new resident. Now I got to go through all that. So
for sure.
it's been fun for us.
No, I hear you. I agree. Steve, anything you want to?
Yeah, I think that I was at a conference a few months ago where one of the speakers talked about this. I think it was the founder of Spotify, actually, and he talked about how their goal was to create seamless experiences in their technology, or frictionless, not seamless, but friction, to reduce friction, right? And I think that one of the things that we don't spend as much time thinking about as we ought to is that becoming a senior living customer is full of points of friction. And so I think that to celebrate anything that reduces friction becomes a really, really powerful thing. And that's really what you're talking about is you've done this massive, in this one extremely high friction area, you've made it, you've reduced the friction a ton. And I think that to sort of piggyback off that, to say, if each of you who are in operations, or even if you're in the solutions provider side, to think about, how much friction does your particular product, your particular senior living organization have, and are there ways that you can reduce that? Because if you reduce that friction, you will have more business and happier people.
And just thinking about it while we're sitting here, earlier in my career, so this is probably 15 years ago, when I was, started out as a graphic designer on the creative side of marketing. And I went through that literal transition of creating forums. I happened to work for a dental consultancy at the time, and creating, literally as the designer, creating forums for, practices at that time. It was, and also going through the transition of like, from things being paper to binders to automated. I literally lived through that myself as the guy who had to figure it out for doctors' offices. So yeah, I definitely lived through that. So it wasn't fun. So
yeah,
more technology can help.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, the more technology can help make this smooth, and the more it can be centric to the industry it's serving, the better. So that's all just occurred to me.
Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time with, taking kids to doctor's appointments, or for myself, et cetera. Everybody still hands out the clipboard and paperwork. And so it's funny. I found even with like ahead of time, they'll send you the form electronically to fill out. They still hand me the paper one for some reason. I'm like, I've got this twice now. But that's an industry, you know, I'm sure I could go solve a problem there, but you know, we just love where we're at and want to stay focused here.
Well,
It is a major headache and deterrent. So
no, for sure. And like you said, I like that. Supporting the people, supporting the people, supporting the people. That's great.
yeah.
Awesome.
So
All right. Well, as we
Cool. So just too quick, let me do my little housekeeping thing
Okay.
here. Just a reminder, I'm not clicking too fast. Why can't I get that to work? This is the time to go in and do your speaker eval for Neill. And if you have other people who you haven't done, you can grab those too. It's just a quick drop down link, pick the speaker that you want to do your evaluation for, fill it out. Seeing some great chat there. Really appreciate that. $100 gift card to Amazon for the person who initiates the most chats on each day. We'll announce that tomorrow. And Neill, thanks for joining us. And you're great. I love your passion for this industry. You know, you've jumped into this industry and embraced it with 110%, and that is absolutely wonderful. So
thanks. Good to see both of you. Thanks for putting all this together. I know behind the scenes, a ton of work went in that, you know, everyone else on the outside can't necessarily appreciate, but I think, you know, I've watched almost all the presentations as I've had time, and it's been amazing. So thanks to both of you for putting it together. Very much appreciated. So
glad to do it.
you bet. I'm going to just give a shout out to Dave and his team because they've done most of the heavy lifting. They just let me come in and blather a bit. So appreciate
shows
that.
Up.
Yeah, just show up. That's it. So anyway.
Right. So in about 3 minutes, we have Elias, Second Act Financial. I've been talking to him about this presentation for a while. It's what senior living has to learn from Henry Ford. So I know this is going to be good. So come back and join us in about 3 minutes with Elias, and we'll see you then. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.